Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to show you guys how to paint this pretty landscape today. We're working on a 16 by 20 black primed canvas. I've got my large chalk round brush, my neon Holbein paints, and I've got a few Color by Felix paints as well. And I'll be posting everything in the description below like I always do, all the brushes, paints, etc. So we're going to begin with the sky, and I'm going to take my orange, both oranges, the neon ones, with my big round chalk brush. I'm not getting my brush wet at all, and I'm putting it right in the center there. Going to make a big circle and just start making my circle bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm going to start to pick up neon yellow, and then what I'm going to do is start picking up a little bit of white just to brighten the center a little bit. I'm going to take some neon yellow with a little bit more of my white and continue softly, carefully building up this beautiful sun. I'm going to go around and around, just dry brushing down below and around the sides before I come in with my next color. Now I'm going to take my neon red, neon orange, then I'm going to start tapping in with my neon orange and neon yellow just to start to create some foliage, bushes, and trees. Now you don't have to have a large chalk brush like this to create your bushes and trees, guys. You can use any large stipple brush, mop brush, even a really large fan brush or filbert brush will work, okay? I'm going to start bringing in more color, the second neon orange and the neon red. I'm going to start pulling and sliding my brush to create large scoops, smaller towards the sun and larger towards us in the foreground at the bottom of the canvas. I'm going to go up on either side, and I'm going to switch over to a dry, regular size mop brush. I'm going to take neon yellow and a little bit of white, tap the two and pull together. I'm going to line it up right in the middle for the sun, push and twist around with my brush to create that brightest part of the sun. Then I'm going to do is just leave it, work on some other things in the painting, and let that just set into the canvas and dry a little bit before adding any more. If I try to add any more white right now, it'll just keep coming off. So I could dry it off with a hairdryer, but I have other things to work on in this painting, so I don't really need to at this point. I'm just going to take that soft yellow and white and start coming in with some lighter bushes and foliage just along the side of the path. Okay, so now I'm going to take my neon pink and my luminous rose, both beautiful colors that are going to look so nice with all the other colors in this painting. I'm going to come in on the left side on a slight little angle like this and just start tapping in carefully. And I'll continue doing this all up the side and then pulling, lightly brushing down below. When the paint runs out of my brush, I'll just dry brush it out along the bottom. And I'm slightly overlapping here with neon red and a little bit of my neon orange. A little bit of neon pink and white. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to pull and sweep in a round curve here along the right side. It's going to meet up with a path on the bottom. Just soft, long, sweeping strokes and light little taps for the foliage. I'm going to come in with more of my luminous rose now. And dry brush along the top. I'm going to go over to a long liner brush now with some titanium white and some ultramarine blue. And I'm going to blend the two together, making a light blue violet. Now I'm going to use this to create some really pretty, contrasting, complementary, colorful tree trunks and branches. I'm going to continue with that curve shape that I have of the trees in this whole painting. It's got this really nice, round, soft vibe to it. So I'll come along on both sides and do this, sometimes adding a little bit more water to my brush and maybe a little bit more white. In fact, as we get closer to the center of the painting, those trees are going to be further away and they're not going to be as colorful. So what I'm going to do is fade my blue out by adding more white and a little bit of water. Right now I'm going to take another mop brush. This is a longer oval mop brush, and I'm going to take my luminous rose, a little bit of neon pink maybe, and just start tapping in towards the far left side. So I'm going to come in on the black canvas and then gently start overlapping the previous layer of trees. I'll do the same thing on the right side. Alright, so the next color I'm going to be using is my ultramarine blue, and I haven't washed my brush out. I want to mix the two together because I'm going to get a really beautiful violet color by doing this. There's a hint of that luminous rose in there, titanium white, and see what a gorgeous color that is, and that ultramarine blue. So let's start layering, starting just over top of that luminous rose previously, and then the other colors before that. Look how beautiful these colors look together, you guys. And then I'm going to do a lighter tone by adding a bit of white to my brush. I'm going to continue around and then sweep out the leftover dry brush paint along the bottom for the path. And I'll do the same thing over on the right side. Okay, so now I'm going to wash that brush out and switch over to my mini fan brush. I'm going to take a little bit of white, pull just a little bit of that blue in there and make a really, really, really light blue-violet color. Like the tree trunks that we have that are closer to the trees, we're going to kind of match that up and just start doing some little bits of moss or grass, whatever we have growing way back there. And this is a very nice complementary color with the orange, all those peach tones that we have. So I'm going to balance out all of that orange that we have back there and bring in a little bit of the complementary color to that, because there's just so much of that back there that we need a nice balance. So I'll add a little bit of that there, and then I'm going to come in and gradually start adding a little bit more blue as we get closer to the foreground. Now I'm going to take my luminous rose, the white that I have there, with a little bit of my ultramarine blue. We're going to make a lilac-y color now and start adding some of that as well. Okay, so now I'm just about ready to start painting my cabin. And what I'm going to do is take a large flat brush, and you guys can use any size of flat brush that you want. And I'm actually just scraping or scumbling carefully off the layer of paint, exposing the black canvas underneath. And this is a really, really neat technique. It's super easy. You just scumble it off with a little bit of water on your brush. Be sure to wipe the excess paint and water off on a towel that you have close by. And we're going to do the roof first, and then we'll come in with the other lines. And it's just very basic, straightforward little house, nothing fancy. We'll be adding a little bit of blue to the roof. We'll be adding some windows, letting us feel like there's life in that cottage, and it's lived in and it's cozy, and there's maybe a fire going, because going to have a little chimney, of course, and have a little puff of smoke coming out of it. So I'll do a dark color right under the roof line there, and this side's going to be more in shadow. The front of the house where the door is will have a little staircase there, and that's going to be a little bit lighter. So I'm just going to use a little bit of my blue violet for the roof, and whenever I want to make it look dark and have more contrast and shadow, I'm going to use less white and more of my either phthalo blue, sap green, luminous, rose, ultramarine blue. Any of those colors will work as long as it's the darkest and it really shows up. Or you can just scrape or scumble the paint off and have a really dark contrast with the black canvas. So I'm going to add a few little bushes down around the base of the house, making it look like it's nestled. So I want that house to look like it's tucked behind the foliage. And that kind of helps to make it look like you didn't just stick a house or a sticker of a house on a painting. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you have to paint your house or your structure and then have some little bushes or trees in front of it and against it, because that will make it really look 3D and like it's been there for a long time, that it's got stuff growing around it, if that makes sense. So I was just using my tiniest little mop brush, and now I'm back using my another really small brush. This is like a long, skinny, flat brush. You could use a liner brush too, and I'm just kind of outlining with a nice peach glow, bright peach glow. You can use the neon orange, the lightest neon orange or neon yellow. Mix those oranges and yellows with a bit of white, and you'll get this nice, bright, glowing color. And then I'll add windows. So just little dabs for the windows. I'll have a little window in my door, and I like to do 3 or 4 windows along the side. So I'll just continue adding little details to the house, nothing too fancy, just building up my light in my windows and my shadows, and then we'll apply shadow even where the chimney is that falls on the roof. And it's really easy to do that too. You just do a little swipe and pull with your brush of one of your dark colors. And then I'll add a few little bushes in the front on the other side of the house as well. A highlight, a little bit of blue, violet, and white. So I'm just taking another little liner brush. This one's a shorter one, and I've got white and ultramarine blue. I'm just doing a little wiggle and then a puff of smoke coming out from the top. Super easy, simple. And then just outlining the house again with that peach glow color that I made. I've got a clean, dry mop brush. I'm going to take sap green or hooker's green hue with my phthalo blue. Tap the two together. Don't have to overblend. And I'm going to start coming in with more of the foreground. It's nice to have a really rich, deep, beautiful green, blue-green in the foreground. And I'm going to, again, paint it on a slant, on an angle, and then have it kind of wrapping around, creating sort of a frame around the canvas. And then we'll start adding some larger leaves, some ivy, and a few foxgloves and delphiniums maybe. I painted some on my new painting, or in my new painting yesterday that I shared. And that was really fun. So I mentioned in that video that I wanted to continue with this theme and this series of cozy fantasy type cottage paintings. They're just a lot of fun to paint and they're really enjoyable. I think you guys are liking them too, and all the fun colors. So here I'm just, without washing my brush off, taking a little bit of turquoise, as you can see, and adding a nice soft highlight. Again, this is all these colors we're using look nice together. You really can't go wrong with these. And if you're not into using a lot of color, you can omit a few of these colors and simplify it. It looks pretty even without the turquoise and the sap green and the phthalo blue. You could just leave it with all those other colors we had before. But this is so much fun, and I really love that I added this and brought out some more of the leaves to make them stand out a little bit more, making them bigger, and it really kind of sets us into the foreground. I like those paintings that give that feeling, that sense of we can walk right into them. It's very welcoming and very inviting. I think those are the types of landscapes that I'm really drawn into painting. So again, I'm just doing the same thing here on the right side. Taking the turquoise, not washing my brush out. I like the colors to start to gently blend into one another. That way you get all those mid-tones naturally. Alright, after adding a few little branches coming down from the top there, I'm going to take my Filbert brush, mix up some white, turquoise, a little bit of phthalo blue, just to make a nice light highlight color for that big branch up there. And I'm actually going to start bringing down some dripping hanging moss as well. I love that feeling in a painting of having moss hanging and vines and all that kind of stuff. I'll tap down on the bottom here a little bit, starting to add some more detail. The Filbert brush is a really great brush, guys, for creating foliage in your paintings. It gives you a little bit more control than a mop brush would. So if you have a tight space that you need to get into to create some foliage, moss, grass, whatever, this is the brush. Of course, you want to choose the size accordingly to the size of bush or tree that you're painting. And they come in so many different sizes. I've got probably 10 or so different ones. So just tapping, pulling, and flicking lightly with my brush with that light color I made of turquoise, phthalo, and white. So I'm going to take a little bit of my neon pink now, and I'm just going to tap lightly on either side of the house. And then I'm going to soften it and tone it in just a little bit, but I want to add a little bit more above the house first. And then right here, I'm just going to gently pull and then come in with just a little bit of my blue to tone it. Doesn't make sense that it would be that bright on this side. So just tapping lightly in with some blue. And I've just got an oval mop brush here. I love this brush. I've got to remember to get more of these. And I'll try to add the name of what it's called in the description below for you guys. Just adding some more highlights now, turquoise, a little bit more of that turquoise, maybe even a little bit of white. You want to be very careful that you don't add too much white though. Gonna add a little bit more just around this hanging moss. Now I know that these colors are going to dry, this whole painting will dry a little bit darker because I'm working on a black canvas. And you can just see with around the sun, you can see that black canvas kind of poking through. So that's why I am adding a little bit of white to my turquoise here and there, so that when it dries it will be the right shade. Okay, with a Filbert brush and some more of my orange and white. Now that this is dry around the sun, I can come in and add another soft glow. And then I won't be able to see so much of that black canvas, and it kind of looks a little bit streaky. You don't really notice it too much, but I really do want it to look a lot softer. So I'm just going to play around with orange, both of my neon oranges, a little bit of neon yellow and white, keeping it nice and bright in the center with titanium white. And then I'll add some more of that fuzzy peachy color, beautiful glowing peach bushes, and then even a few little waterfalls. I'm going to switch to a different brush to finish the waterfalls. And the waterfalls are not going to be detailed. I want them to look really far away, and like there's sun rays or fog or a fine mist, kind of making them look faded off way into the distance. I'll add a little bit more to the path here, just using the same fuzzy peach color for highlights. Just gonna carefully soften around this sun. So you can take a smaller Filbert brush, a narrower one, or there's one of these Eventail Filbert brushes. They have, they deliberately have some of the brushes cut out of them, so they look like a little rake, and that's how you get those little spaces. See that? And they look like waterfalls. Super easy. Just taking a bit of white, a little bit of water to help it flow nicely on my brush. Then I'm going to do a light dry brush of that same color, that fuzzy peachy color, over my roof. But I'm not going to cover the shadow that I added. We want to keep that shadow, of course, there from the chimney. So I'm going to start adding some more shadows, taking my ultramarine blue, just a little bit of white, but more blue than white, and just lightly kind of dry brushing. No water on my brush, just scumbling, making sure that all those layers of paint are dry first before doing this. This way I can just kind of filter and layer over. I'm now going to create a filter using just neon yellow, and I'm going to scumble it lightly over some parts of my green. So that sap green, phthalo blue, turquoise foliage that we created, I'm going to just pick a few spots here and there to just pull very lightly, carry that neon yellow over, and when it dries it'll be a really beautiful magical emerald green color. I'm just taking a little bit of neon yellow and white this time to make it like a really soft butter color back there and around the sun, around the brightest part of the sun. I'm going to come in with some neon orange, a little bit of white, and a filbert brush or a cat tongue brush, and just start tapping in lightly. In fact, I think I am using my cat's tongue brush. I love this brush, it's great. I really recommend this. I'm adding this to my list of must-have brushes for you guys. Now I washed my brush out and I'm taking my lightest light blue violet, so more white than blue, and I'll tap in a few more treetops and bushes with this color. So after adding some more of that ultramarine blue down on the bottom as well, I'm going to come in with more of my luminous rose and add some in between the purple, the orange, and that turquoise. Then I'll take a little bit of white and soften and come in down below and start tapping in some flowers. So what I want to do is start to make them look like delphiniums or foxgloves. So I'm just going to tap a few little flower stalks in here. Very easy, just tap the top smaller and then making it look like it's fuller down as it goes down to the bottom. So you're going to make it wider on the bottom and pointy on the top. And they can go in all different directions. They don't have to go straight up and down. And you can change up the colors a little bit, sometimes adding more white to your pinks. And I'm just using a combination here of my luminous rose, my neon pink, and even a little bit of ultramarine blue. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of my phthalo blue with a little bit of white and I'm going to start creating some simple looking little ivy leaves here on the side just to make something else stand out in the foreground a little bit more. This helps to make everything else in the background look farther away. So just pushing and tapping and wiggling with my brush to create these leaves. You can use a flat brush, a Filbert brush, or a round brush. The cat's tongue brush works really well. And I'll be making some leaves on this side too, and I'll be taking sap green with my neon yellow and even a little bit of turquoise at times. So we have a whole bunch of different types of bushes and leaves and foliage going on. It all just helps to make this landscape so much more inviting. Alright, I'm going to take a clean flat brush that's a little bit damp, take my yellow, orange, and white, more white than yellow and orange, and I'll begin creating some sun rays. So you want to make sure your painting is dry first before beginning these. And I'm going to start from the center, pull and flick in all directions, making it wider as they get further out away from the sun. So I'm just going to continue building up my sun rays, adding a little bit more white here and there, coming out again right from the center of the sun. So you can do as many layers as you want, and you can use more white if you want to make yours really, really bright. And then what I'm going to do after this is go around and around right here, making soft circles just to soften everything up. Okay, so I'm just going to add some highlights here. I'm taking that luminous rose with just a little bit of white, tapping in there. Such a pretty color. And then I'm going to do the same thing to my flowers down here. Just taking, whatever the luminous rose or the neon pink, adding a little bit of white, and just tapping lightly with the corner of my brush. And like I said, you can use a round brush, a liner brush for this, any size flat brush. Add a little bit more. Just tap, tap, tap lightly. Okay, with a little liner brush now, I'm taking my phthalo blue and I'm going to add some contrast and some shadows, slightly outlining some of the leaves just to make them stand out a little bit more. And then I'm going to create little branches or little vines, kind of twisting and going up and around. I'll do the same thing on the left side, only the one on the left side is going to be a little bit more fuller and look more like a real vine, kind of twisting and going up. So you'll see how I create this. I'm going to push where I want it to be thicker with my brush, again just using the phthalo blue. You could take a little bit of the sap green as well if you want and blend the two together. So I'll be pushing and curving over and twisting to create the stalk. And then what I'm going to do is come in with a few leaves, and I'll be making them the same way as how I did them on the bottom. First dark, and then I'll add some of my lighter colors to make them stand out and look 3D. So the turquoise, yellow, white. Okay, so I really like how this painting is coming together. I am just about done this one, but I want to add a little bit more of my neon yellow and my sap green mixture down here, making this more of a warm yellow instead of a cool yellow. I think maybe the sun is just hitting these a little bit more than the other ones. So just continue to build up some lighter leaves here with that yellow and green. A little bit of turquoise. You know what looks nice is when you mix turquoise with the neon yellow. That looks amazing. It's like my favorite green. I'm just going to soften with a little bit more of that light blue violet. And I'm even going to come in with that light blue violet and do a dry brush, barely touching the canvas in between where I have my sun rays. And that's going to look quite beautiful and just give it a really, really soft glow. It's subtle, but it makes such a big difference. Okay, so after doing this, I'm going to add a little bit of blue violet, light blue violet to my house. I'm going to add a little bit more to my leaves in the foreground, just finishing them up and adding a tiny little railing here on either side of the stairs leading up to this cozy little cottage. I'll let you guys continue watching the rest of this video. This was such a fun one to do. You guys are going to love this, and I cannot wait to hear your response and see your versions of this painting. So stay happy and creative out there, guys, and I'll see you next time really soon in another video. Bye!